Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. By now, as you're viewing this video, my wife, myself, and my boys are in our vehicle on the way to Wisconsin. We're probably just east of the Albuquerque area. Well, I consider going through Texas and Missouri and Iowa and Minnesota especially to get to Wisconsin our wilderness. I do consider Wisconsin America's promised land, but I am a little biased about that. In getting ready to go on our trip, we had to make sure everything was in order. We had to make sure we were packed, make sure that we had our route planned, make sure we had plenty of snacks for the kids, make sure everything was our clothes and hotels and everything were in order. I find that the same case here in Numbers as we begin the book of Numbers. I find that God is very orderly. In fact, He is very detailed in what He wants done before they move out. As you remember, they've been camped out at Mount Sinai for about a year. And I'm sure they were anxious at this point to make that trip into the Promised Land. So God puts in order what He needs done in order to make this trip. In fact, He tells them each tribe where they need to be camped, and He tells them what they need to do. He gives them responsibilities. I think it's interesting in the 4th chapter of Numbers, there's a statement that's said 4 times. The last one is in verse 49. At the Lord's command through Moses, each was assigned his work and told what to carry. I think they had their marching orders. In fact, they knew what their marching orders were. Everyone had a responsibility. Everybody was part of the team. The men that were in part of the census in chapter 1 and chapter 2 were no less important than the ones in chapter 4. They just had different responsibilities. In order to make this move into the Promised Land, they had to work together. They had the soldiers ready to go, the men 20 years and older, just in case they had to take care of an enemy. They had the Levitical tribe with each one of their responsibilities in detail of what to carry and what to touch and what not to touch in order to move the camp forward. God was in the center of the camp when they rested. He wanted to make sure everything was ordered there. God was at the beginning of the trek to the Promised Land, so when He moved, He would move to the front and everyone would follow. I think that's what we need to be. We need to make sure that when we're encamped, that we make sure that the Lord's in the center of our camp. And when He's ready to move, we need to be ready to follow along. I think back to playing athletics. Were the soldiers just important as the Levites carrying all the articles of their tabernacle? Maybe not in their minds. But in God's mind, and in the order that He had, it was very important. They needed to do their job and do their job well. I think that relates to us in this fact that He's given everyone in our body a job to do. And everything does not function well if we're worried about someone else doing their job while we don't do our job. When I look at athletics and I look at the great teams that have ever played, everybody did their job and they did it the best of their ability. Now, did they know what the other responsibilities were? Sure. Were they there to encourage one another in their responsibilities? Yes. I want to remind you that not all the great teams had the best players. There were many teams that were more talented than some of the championship teams in the past. But the championship teams were the ones who knew what their role was and did it to the best of their ability. I think we need to do that. I think we do not need to get hung up about what so-and-so doing and why they're not helping me. I see this all the time in social media. They're worried about, oh, what is that body doing? And we're doing this. We have to remind ourselves that we are called to fulfill our role in the whole body, and that we need to take care of business with what God has called us. And if anyone asks what we're doing, then we need to explain to them what our role is in the body. My parsha is short today. The thing I got out of it was God is very orderly. God has specific instructions and specific roles for us to play. And if we do that, not only will we make our local body successful for the kingdom of God, we will make the whole body worldwide successful because we're doing our job. Thank you, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. And I'm looking forward to seeing you when I fly back next week.